Have you ever been in a situation where that initial wave of just sweet, lavish attention you were getting, it felt less like true romance and maybe more like a sophisticated, kind of calculated setup?
Or, maybe you've been caught in an argument where you were absolutely certain something happened a specific way.
Oh, yeah.
And the person you're talking to just calmly insists that, no, your memory is flawed. Or worse, that you're just making things up entirely.
Exactly. And those experiences, from that exhilarating high of an instant connection to just paralyzing confusion of self-doubt, they aren't random.
Not at all. They're examples of highly effective, really time-tested psychological tactics.
Right. So our mission today is to analyze the core psychological architecture of control. We're talking about things like love bombing, gaslighting, triangulation.
And then show how these strategies scale up.
Yeah, we're going to trace the blueprint from a deeply personal level, single relationship, all the way up to high-stakes fraud, corporate security breaches, and even the political intrigues of a 17th century royal court. We're really looking for the universal language of manipulation.
And that universality is, I think, the big revelation here. In psychology, manipulation isn't honest persuasion. It's not negotiation.
No.
It's a form of psychological control. It uses these covert tactics to influence your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, all for the manipulator's benefit.
So it's basically, it's hidden aggression.
It is. It's deliberately seeking power by exploiting our most fundamental human needs and vulnerabilities.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning of the trap.
Right.
The sweetest sounding, but maybe the most dangerous first step, love bombing.
Right.
This is the hallmark of that early stage of narcissistic abuse, what they often call the idealization phase.
It's the honeymoon phase, but it's accelerated and amplified beyond anything reasonable. We're talking about this overwhelming, intense affection.
Like gushing compliments, right?
Gushing compliments. Immediate declarations that you are their soulmate. Lavish gifts that just feel completely out of proportion for how long you've known the person.
And a big one is that pressure for constant availability.
Yeah.
And a quick commitment. Saying, I love you within, a few weeks.
Exactly. That acceleration is the key red flag. One survey we saw showed that while about 70% of people reported a new partner saying, I love you in the first month, the majority of people felt that, 4 to 6 months or even longer was the right kind of pace.
So that speed creates this extreme, premature emotional bond. And that's what becomes so hard to break because it feels so intense and special.
And that intense bond is the leverage. The idealization phase, it quickly transitions to the devaluation phase.
This switch flips.
And all that affection is replaced by sharp criticism, jealousy, sudden withdrawal.
I read a really visceral description from one source. A victim described her partner as being like a romance novel when he was courting her. But when they fought, he would turn into a complete monster. And then if she threatened to leave,
he'd switch right back
to the romance novel persona. So she's constantly chasing that memory of the good times.
And that cycle is mirrored, almost perfectly. In the world of high-stakes fraud, we see this exact strategy in romance fraud schemes.
How so?
Well, perpetrators forge this deep, personal, romantic connection, often with elderly victims, before they invent a crisis and ask for money. They create these, really plausible, high-status personas.
Like a diplomat or a military official?
A senior U.S. diplomat, exactly. Yeah. Something to heighten the victim's emotional investment.
The fake Romeo case is a perfect example of this. He conned over 100 women out of $250,000.
And he didn't use technical hacks.
No. It was all false promises of a future, requests for short-term loans that, of course, were never repaid. It works because that initial emotional investment creates a powerful psychological debt.
And the engine driving that debt is what's called the reciprocity norm.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. So the reciprocity norm is this deep, almost instinctual compulsion we feel to respond to an act of kindness or a gift with a gesture of equal or, even greater value. It's so hardwired that it can make us override our own self-interest just to get rid of that feeling of obligation.
It's an evolutionary thing, right? Cooperation helped us survive. But when it's exploited, it creates this immediate, sometimes really uncomfortable reciprocity anxiety.
Right. If someone does you a huge favor out of the blue, you feel this immense pressure to return it.
Exactly. And our sources break it down into 3 types. There's generalized reciprocity, which is altruistic, like in a family. You don't expect an immediate return.
Okay.
There's balanced reciprocity, which is transactional. I buy coffee today, you get it next week.
Makes sense.
But the one manipulators use is negative reciprocity. That's when one person is actively trying to get more out of the exchange than they put in, leveraging a small gift for a huge return later.
Modern social engineering attacks use this brilliantly.
Oh, they do. An attacker will offer something exclusive, maybe a piece of analysis, a helpful file, some advice, just to create that sense of obligation.
And then the target feels like they have to give something back.
Like company data or login information.
Yeah. And this ties right into the door in the face technique.
Right.
So the manipulator starts by asking for something outrageous, something they know you'll reject.
A guaranteed no.
Guaranteed no. Then they immediately follow up with the smaller thing, the thing they actually wanted all along. And we're more likely to say yes because we see them backing down as a concession.
That we now have to reciprocate.
Exactly. So once that bond is established, the next step is to create complete reality distortion. And that brings us to gaslighting.
A tactic designed purely to make you doubt your own perceptions and your sanity.
It's abuse engineered to make a partner doubt their own memory, their judgment, giving the gaslighter total control over the narrative.
And the result is that agonizing feeling of always walking on eggshells.
The examples from our sources are just. They're painfully familiar because they sound like common arguments, but the intent is so sinister. Things like,
"You're making things up, that's not what happened."
Or everyone else thinks you're the one being unreasonable. Or, my favorite, hearing you're too sensitive or overreacting when you have a valid emotional reaction.
The psychological effect is a total erosion of self-trust. The victim starts second-guessing everything and becomes completely reliant on the manipulator's version of reality.
They become psychologically dependent. So once that self-trust is gone, the manipulator often brings in a third element to secure their control: triangulation.
Triangulation is the ultimate divide-and-conquer strategy. You bring a third person, or even just the idea of a third person, into the dynamic.
To maintain that central power position.
Exactly. The manipulator feeds different, sometimes contradictory information to the other two people, making them feel isolated, insecure, jealous of each other.
In families, you see this with constructive golden child versus scapegoat dynamics.
Or a parent aligning with one child against another, just to keep the whole system focused on their needs. And for the narcissist, it creates this powerful illusion of superiority. They thrive on the drama.
It validates them.
It validates their sense of being right. You know, a narcissistic parent might say something like, "My therapist agrees with me that you're the problem." They use this outside authority who isn't there to back up their claims and trap the target.
So if these tactics are so pervasive, what's the defense? I mean, you can't stop someone from trying to gaslight you.
No, but you can absolutely control how you engage with it. The key is refusing to engage emotionally. You have to stay grounded in your own truth.
So instead of arguing the facts,
Right, if someone says you're not remembering it right, you don't argue. You calmly state your boundary. We may have different recollections, but that doesn't make mine incorrect. Let's stick to what we both agree on.
and if they push or escalate,
Just a simple, "Okay," and you walk away. It denies them the emotional escalation they need, and it immediately shifts the power dynamic back to you.
okay, so let's scale this up. How are these intimate vulnerabilities weaponized in the professional world?
Well, if personal manipulation uses self-doubt, corporate manipulation uses structural trust. Social engineering, which is just sophisticated cyber manipulation, is the dominant attack vector in cybersecurity today.
Dominant one.
Yes, 98%. 98% of all successful cyber attacks rely on human manipulation, not on technical software vulnerabilities.
So they don't hit the firewall, they hit the human.
They hit the human, preying on our natural, emotional, and social wiring. They leverage the exact same principles.
Authority.
Authority, for one.
Yep.
Impersonating officials to exploit that balance between fear and trust and scarcity.
FOMO. Fear of missing out.
Exactly. Using that anxiety to make a target panic and place high value on some limited time offer or exclusive access.
And I imagine modern attacks are rarely just one thing.
They're almost never single vector. Imagine this. You get an urgent email from someone pretending to be the CFO. That's authority. It's about a limited time investment opportunity that only 3 departments can access. That's scarcity.
Right.
And then they immediately follow up with a friendly phone call where the CFO mentions a common interest you shared on social media. That's likability. And now you feel comfortable enough to click the link without double checking.
So when we bring this into criminal law, the line between aggressive business and actual criminal intent gets tricky.
Very tricky. In a charge like extortion, intent is everything. Extortion typically requires the intent to permanently deprive the victim of property.
So if a threat is made just to borrow money, not to keep it forever.
Some jurisdictions might find that the specific criminal intent for extortion is missing. It really shows how much legal guilt depends on the manipulator's state of mind.
And the legal line around fraud is being complicated even more by this controversial right-to-control theory. This theory expands fraud prosecution way beyond just causing financial harm. It focuses on deception related to important information.
The idea is that the victim is harmed because the deception deprived them of their right to control how their assets were used, even if they didn't actually lose any money in the end.
Our source mentions the United States v. Johnson case. A banker was convicted for deceiving a company in a foreign exchange deal. The company got everything it paid for.
But the banker had lied about the underlying market conditions, and the conviction was upheld under this right to control. Well, critics argue it dangerously blurs the line. It could criminalize basic deception or, sharp dealing that doesn't result in any actual financial loss. The focus moves from tangible harm to informational transparency.
Which makes it really hard for a jury to distinguish between a simple business misrepresentation and serious criminal fraud.
Exactly.
But this anatomy of control, it's not a modern thing, is it? We can trace these tactics all through history, especially in the high-stakes world of royal courts.
Oh, absolutely. Proximity to power was everything. Take the tragic story of Princess Margaret and Peter Townsend. Their case is a brilliant example of how social and institutional protocol can be a tool of control. He was a divorced war hero, and their love was crushed by rigid royal protocol. It controlled their lives through external constraints, not direct threats.
But history also has much darker, more calculated figures. I mean, look at the Chinese consort Wu Zetian.
An incredible story. After her lover, the emperor, died, she defied centuries of tradition, came back to court, and became her deceased lover's son's mistress.
She leveraged personal relationships and intimate proximity to rise all the way to becoming the only officially recognized empress in Chinese history.
And for pure, calculated political triangulation, it's hard to beat Catherine de Medici.
A courtesan spy.
A courtesan spy, Charlotte de Suave. Catherine allegedly deployed her to disrupt an alliance between her son and her son-in-law.
By having her engage with both of them.
Intimately. To drive a wedge of jealousy and sexual rivalry between them so that they would, and this is a quote, forget their ambitions, their duties, and their plans.
That's weaponizing intimacy to neutralize political ambition. It's incredible.
And finally, you have the infamous Jacobean scandal, the Overbury poison scandal from 1613.
Francis Howard and Robert Carr. Carr's advisor, Thomas Overbury, was dead set against their marriage.
Which led to Overbury being imprisoned in the Tower of London and then, poisoned.
And Francis eventually pleaded guilty. But the real impact wasn't just the crime. It was the exposure of the raw corruption in King James III's court.
And it was amplified by what we'd now call a PR war. It was spread through pamphlets and popular ballads set to catchy tunes. It totally destroyed the king's reputation for impartial justice.
It shows that the battle for control extends to controlling the public narrative itself.
Absolutely.
So we've kind of come full circle. Whether it's narcissistic abuse, corporate fraud, or a 17th century power grab, the core methods are the same.
They are target empathy, create a debt through false generosity, erode self-trust, and use calculated deception to achieve total control.
Manipulation, whether it's psychological or strategic, it just always seems to rely on exploiting those fundamental human drives.
Our need for connection, our impulse to reciprocate, our desire for stability.
So what stands out to you then? Because this manipulation rarely happens all at once. It's a gradual thing.
It is, and the defense requires a really crucial mental shift.
From what to what?
From trusting the manipulator's persuasive words to observing their consistent patterns of behavior, maintaining documentation, questioning intent, both yours and others. That's the ultimate foundation for security. It's your insurance policy.